Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahavirindravavahe Tejasvinavaditamastu Ma Vitvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwara Gureva Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapiyat Sarvam Lokyam Sacharacharam Padam Narshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Shri Chinmaya Sat Namaha. Om Shri Chinmaya Sat Gurave Namaha. Om Shri Chinmaya Sat Gurave Namaha. Satchidananda Rupaya Vishnutpatyata Hetave Tapatraya Vinashaya Shri Krishnaya Vayam Namaha. Shri Krishnaya Vayam Namaha. Achyutananda Govinda Madhava Sachidananda Narayana Hare. Sachidananda Narayana Hare. Sachidananda Narayana Hare. So the question that King Parikshit asked, which is the question that the entire Bhagavatam is based on, is how to prepare for death. In a way, our entire life is a preparation for just that. Firstly, because we don't know when it's going to happen. But it's also very interesting. There's a quote in the Mahabharata where when Yamraj is testing Yudhishthira on how wise he is, he's asked, what is the greatest wonder in the world? And it would be interesting to see what our answer to that would be. But Yudhishthira's answer is that we see death all the time. We've seen fathers bury their sons, brothers bury brothers, wives. And of course, we bury our parents. We've seen all scenarios. And yet, we get surprised when death happens. That is his answer for what is the greatest wonder in the world. And so, to prepare for it is not to be surprised by it. Whether it's our own death we are facing,
or those of our loved ones. And so to live a life in preparation. Guruji himself and many other teachers say that the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna's question is how to live our lives. Bhagavatam, the question is how to die. But they both give the same answer. And so really, knowing how to live is also knowing how to die. In a nutshell, to be able to immerse our mind in that truth or that source from which we have come, so that there's no sense of going and coming. Otherwise, there's this feeling of we are leaving something at the point of death. But if the minds are already absorbed in the very source of all creation, there's no going. There's no coming. And it's this movement of going and coming and going and coming that, in a way, creates misery and suffering. It doesn't necessarily have to. We go on holidays and come back and it's very enjoyable. So then why does some going and comings cause misery and some goings and comings don't cause misery? Answer? Preparation. We more prepared for our holidays? We are actually. A lot of people are very diligent in preparing their holidays. Holidays we want. We want to go. But when we don't want to go, the goings and comings cause misery. So what actually causes misery? Wanting, which can become not accepting. But first, even before I don't accept, because if I don't want anything and if something happens, okay. Even the simplest of things, if I want chocolate cake and then you give me carrot cake, even though it's still cake you've given me, but I wanted something in particular, and then I don't want to accept or what has come instead. So the goings and the comings by itself is not the problem. It's our wanting it to be other than what it is. That is always the problem. If you are miserable, why? You want things to be other than what they are. This is a formula you can test again and again and again in your life. When we say we can have Shraddha in the scriptures, how do we build Shraddha in the scriptures? We take the formulas and you test them. What's a formula you can test? Cause of misery. When you want things to be other than the way it is. So one, I desire. That's why holidays are lots of fun. But if I get attached, even at the hotel where I am staying, because it's such a nice room and it's such a nice view and the food is so good and I don't have to make my bed, then I don't want to come back. Even though I planned it and I wanted it, then the getting attached is the second cause of misery. What was attachment again? Remember, we already spoke about it. Getting stuck. We can unite, like with our hands, without getting stuck. But when we get stuck, then even physically when we get stuck, the motion has to be violent to unstick it. Like when there's magnets, then we have to pull. If something's tied too tight, we have to, then that force depending on how much we resist that force, we experience as pain. So immersing the mind in that which never changes, immersing the mind in that from where we never leave, immersing the mind in that from where we've come to where we all return, is how we prepare ourselves to both live and die. So how? How to keep our mind focused on that higher truth. And then here, Shukdev Maharaj actually explains in a few different ways. So he gives very physical techniques first. And so for those of you who have the book and are following Puja Guruji's commentary on the Bhagavatam, he has explained it and labeled it out and all of that very clearly on page 129. We are on Canto 2 of the Bhagavatam. So the first thing is to meditate, sit straight. Now that's the most basic instruction. The Bhagavatam gives such a basic instruction when you want to focus your mind. And so this is not only just to meditate. When you want to focus your mind, sit straight. And because our posture does affect our thinking. And in fact, for those who regularly meditate, you would have noticed when the mind clears up, you actually just automatically straighten out. And those days where the mind is a little bit more restless or sleepy, you'll automatically slouch. And so to help us to control ourselves, sitting in the seat of meditation to observe our mind, the first thing that he shows us is posture. Now, this can be quite elaborate, especially if you go into the Yoga Shastras. And in the Bhagavatam itself, it is fairly elaborate, but we're just going to make mention of. Posture can be very helpful in focusing our mind. Second, use your breath. I always like to point this out. Today, if you download any meditation app, whether it be Headspace or Calm or Breathe or all those, without fail, every single one of those meditation apps will tell you, breathe. In fact, one of the apps are called Breathe. And now today in yoga, with all this yoga music, again, breathe. You'll see it on t-shirts everywhere. And when was this said by Shukdev Maharaj? More than 5,000 years ago. What's the technique used to focus your mind? Breathe. Again, Yoga Shastra is very elaborate on all the different kind of pranayamas we can do. But the most simplest one, because this is Bhagavatam, and in Bhagavatam, it's very clear that the more we sing the name of the Lord, the more we are purified. In Kali Yuga, it is our surest, safest sadhana. Then to use breath, the way is take a deep breath in, and then as you exhaling, say your mantra, whatever the mantra is. You can just take a deep breath in, and the only mantra, if you don't want to use any other mantra, Om, which we do in the beginning of every class. Already we're using breath, chanting the mantra, calming down the mind, keeping the mind very focused. So if it's Bhagavatam, it's Krishna. So Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama. We'll all do it together 3 times just so that we remember that this is the technique. Okay? We're going to take a very deep breath in. And as we're chanting out, we're just going to say, not sing, just say, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama. Okay, together, breathe in. Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama. Breathe in. Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama. Breathe in. Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama. Now, as the mind gets calmer, because we are focusing on the breath and we're saying the name of the Lord, automatically you'll want to be able to do it slower. If it doesn't happen, it's fine. But if it does happen, then what we do is breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama. This is extremely powerful in controlling our mind. The more restless our mind is, the more support we need to control it. Breath control, japa controls the mind. Combine the two, and then you have such a strong anchor to focus on that the mind will become steady. Another very, very useful thing, because we study the Bhagavatam so that we can use it in our lives. The minute you are feeling overly angry, well, anger, we don't even have to reach overly. Or overly sad. Little bit sadness allowed in all our lives, but overly sad. The minute jealousy comes, don't even allow little bit. The minute fear comes, little bit fear is also okay. This technique helps to calm down emotions. Yeah. Anyway, when we get very emotional, people tell us, breathe. But just breathing isn't enough. Especially if we have faith and we know that turning our mind to Bhagwan is what purifies us, because only that which is pure can purify us. Please know that this is why only Bhagwan can purify us. And so turning our mind to Bhagwan, saying his name immediately, even just turning our mind to Bhagwan already purifies us. Saying his name purifies us more. Thinking of his form purifies us more, because the more we focused on him, the more that purity then permeates and gets absorbed into us as well. So first thing was, sit up straight. Thing was to use the breath as a way to anchor the mind in single pointedness and anchor the mind in Bhagwan. And so then the third step is control the mind. And to do so, first we have to control the senses. Yeah. Now, controlling the senses in the seat of meditation, definitely. But actually, in the seat of meditation, we'll only be able to control the mind if we've controlled the senses all through the day. It's, we think life hack means you're going to make things easier. This word itself gives you the sense that you've gotten a shortcut. But any hack will show you it has to become habitual behavior. We're only able to control the mind if it's habitual behavior that we control senses. So, of course, the first one is food. I'm not going to talk about food because we talk far too much about food, myself included. Something like Puja Gurudev used to live this. Anyone who spent time with him would tell you. We tend to, it's hot, it's hot, it's hot, it's hot, it's hot. Even recently, somebody offered to buy me a thermo mini fan so you can hold it because it's hot. If I had said yes, Gurudev would have done this. This is a sense pleasure. What's a sense pleasure? It's too hot, it's too hot, it's too hot, and then wanting AC. It's too cold, it's too cold, it's too cold, and then wanting heater. And we don't even realize. We let the mind just keep thinking about it. And or we get preoccupied with buying things with fragrance. Everything has to have fragrance, everything. Even things that don't usually have fragrance, now we put fragrance. Already all our lotions and toothpaste and all of that had fragrance. Then even washing soaps have to have fragrance. Then lip balm has to have fragrance. And then We just keep adding and adding and adding and adding sense pleasures. Controlling it is necessary. Why? We get far too easily distracted. Number two. Okay, so that was one technique. The steps. Not one technique, sorry. That was the format of how to absorb the mind in, because whichever technique you use, you have to be able to control mind, senses, body. Okay, technique number one now is so beautiful. Here, Shukdev Maharaj says, to absorb our mind in Bhagwan, we have to learn to be able to see Bhagwan everywhere. And so how to do that? Then this universal image is portrayed in the Bhagavatam. And it's repeated in many, many, many Puranas. This universal form is, his feet are patal. Now you remember, I think I mentioned this already, the 7 layers of hell. I said this? Never mind, I'm saying it now. There's 7 layers of hell. Then there's this world, and then there's 7 layers of heaven. And now this form is going to be depicted, and it makes it, and even we will logically think hell, 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 earth, heaven, heaven, heaven. But it's not physical, so it can't be like a layered cake. It's without form. But it helps us to be able to think of it that way. And if we want to be able to meditate on Bhagwan, then we give form and shape to Bhagwan so the mind can think about it. So this universal form. His feet are hell, the lowest level of hell. Then all the 7 layers of hell are till his waist. Then his waist is this world, Bulok, which is why I think we talk about food so much. And then from there onwards is the solar plexus, and then lungs, heart. So up until all the way till his head, which is Brahmalok. All of hell and all of heaven are in him. Such a nice thing to meditate on, because we'll think, how can I be in him if I'm miserable? And which part of him is hell? His feet. Remember yesterday's story? When we hold on to someone's feet, dharmically, they have to protect us. And in hell, all the more when we are miserable, hell is just misery. It's when we consumed with anger and bitterness, or when we are feeling immense loss, or when we so become manipulative in jealousy, or when we overwhelmed with greed. All those feelings are hell. And that's when we need to hold on to his feet the most. And so interestingly, that when he describes the whole of creation, hell are near his feet. Brahmalok, because of knowledge, and we associate it, and like I said, they're not physical places. And even in us, knowledge doesn't exist in our head, even though we automatically say here. Knowledge is far bigger than what can fit into our body. So this is the form given. Yeah? And then it's described quite illustratively, to the extent where he described all the hair on the body is the plants and the grass, and the flow of all the rivers is all the flow of all the blood. And so any part of the body or any part of the world that you look at, in this description, we can see that all of it is part of him. Here, in this description of this cosmic form, he even gives the noble people are in the front and adharma is at the back. Even here, it can't be separate from him. Anything that exists in this world has to be him. And if so, adharma exists, it's here. But interestingly, it's at the back. Because that's behind his back only would we do anything that we would be ashamed of. And so here too, this guidance is always see him in front of you. Because if he's standing looking at you, you won't be able to do adharma. And so see him and feel him constantly in front of you. Know he's there watching. And in fact, the next technique is not this beautiful universal form, which is really, if you read the universal form, there's so much detail. I'm not going to go into all the detail, but even in the Gita, there is reference to this bit where he says that the legs are his Shudras, the hands are the Vaishyas, the torso are the Kshatriyas, and the head is the Brahmanas. So even in terms of people, whichever person you look at fits into his cosmic form. Whatever thing you look at in nature fits into his cosmic form. And of course, the most interesting part of this cosmic form is that Bhagwan's smile is Maya. If you see all our murtis, he's smiling. He can delude like this. Even the greatest of bhaktas can fall under delusion. And so often when meditating on Bhagwan, keep your eyes at his feet. Not that we should be scared of the smile. If it's his smile and if it's him wanting to delude us, then we surrender. And his smile can also be enlightening because he can choose whether he wants to, us to be able to see the knowledge or us to forget the knowledge. So first form, see him everywhere in this cosmic form, and you can see the details of the cosmic form. Number two, technique number two, sometimes that's too much. Mountains as one thing and bones as one, everything in nature, and to remember what is what. It's easier if I just see my Ishta Devata. In the Bhagavatam, Ishta Devata is Krishna. But of course, whichever form of Bhagwan is your Ishta Devata, you meditate on that. And here too, the technique given is so specific. You keep the picture of Bhagwan in front of you. You start with feet. Because once you surrender to feet, we have protection. Right? Then you lift your vision all the way up, admiring every aspect that is beautiful until you come to his eyes. And then see Bhagwan looking at you with love. I already just mentioned, if we think looking at us, we will behave pristine. Not out of fear, maybe sometimes out of fear, but more often than not, and when someone's looking at us affectionately, we raise to the occasion. We actually want to be the best we can be for ourselves and for everyone else. And that gaze of affection that Bhagwan we see in his face reminds us of who it is we ourselves want to be. And then here, Shukdev Maharaj says, and even if that we are not able to focus on, then to meditate on him in his unmanifest form. So maybe just as qualities. We need a lot of dispassion to be able to meditate on just qualities. So meditate only on compassion. It's a word we hear very often today related with spirituality. But if you just try and meditate only on compassion, after a while, we don't know what to meditate on. And so it's easier to meditate on a form. And in the form here, when he gives the form, especially the form of Vishnu, so much symbolism. And the more we understand the symbolism, the more we're able to meditate on the different aspects of it. Right? Like the chakra, of course, it's a weapon of destruction, but it's also time. Right? So that we can meditate on time. It's the conch, sound, which is space, also creation. And we can meditate on the concept of creation and how he is the source of all of creation. The lotus, perfection, beauty, and purity. We can meditate on purity. And so when there's a form, there's so many ways to focus the mind. But here the option is given because some people, when there's too many things to think about, they get distracted. And so here the understanding is so clear that the Bhagavatam is not teaching one technique and it's not promoting one technique. The Bhagavatam is teaching every mind, whichever the mind is, at whatever stage the mind is, whatever the characteristic of the mind is, to lift itself. And so using the techniques to lift yourself, whichever one appeals to you, meditating on qualities, and then ultimately just silence. Here we are listening to Parikshit Maharaj asking Shukdev Maharaj these questions. And so many answers are given. A technique in Puranas with the gurus and the rishis is that they answer precisely and then they stop. And so again, Parikshit Maharaj will ask something. Shukdev Maharaj answers precisely and then he stops. Until finally Parikshit Maharaj basically says, just keep talking. Just keep telling me everything. But we already saw yesterday that until asked, they don't give. And even when asked, precise. Only if you want more, you ask for more. And so here, the responsibility of gaining knowledge is on us. Yeah. It's us who are in charge of making sure we get knowledge. And questions are encouraged. Because if you're not thinking and you're just becoming a passive listener, then there's no point. And so many questions are asked about creation. And many questions are asked about Maya. And so in Canto 2, a lot is specified on Maya, creation. Already Bhagavatam is very clear. There's nothing other than Krishna. So where did creation come from? And then this wonderful word Maya gets introduced. And then after Maya gets introduced, how creation happens? Creation has happened many times. So sometimes it's very structured. First this, then this, then this. And other times, everything's just there at the same time. So there's no one formula. And here, Shukdev Maharaj is explaining in different kalpas, different things happen, and how creation works, and how time works, and how Maya works. And how does Maya work? We don't know. You can read pages and pages and pages. The thing that will be said is, we don't know. But in a gist, in stillness, there's this ripple of movement. And then ripple of movement gains momentum. Now this stillness can be in all of creation. In the beginning of creation, there's just stillness. And then one little ripple of movement, which we call Big Bang. And then all of creation. But the Bhagavatam's not focused so much on creation. It only talks about creation for us to understand ourselves. In my mind, there is stillness. You're wondering when? At night when you're sleeping. There is stillness. And then, first thought, ripple of movement. When we wake up in the morning, first thought is, actually, what's the first thought? Not Vedantically speaking, just normally speaking. What's your first thought? I'm awake. Then, second thought, time to get up. If you've traveled a lot, what's your second thought? You orientate yourself to where you are. I've noticed this. I'll travel, I wake up, I know exactly where I am and what I have to do. Then I get back to Hong Kong and I'll wake up with a startle thinking, where am I? Because you're too relaxed now. When you're traveling, you're very alert, right? So the first thought will orientate you. This is the room, these are the lights, this is where the bathroom is, this is where I've kept my phone to charge, very important, I remember that. Creation. There was nothing. In sleep, where was the world? When I was fast asleep, there was no world. And then my eyes are still closed, there's no world, but there's one thought. What's that thought? Me. Literally, it's just that, me. That's the first thought. And then I'm awake. And then the world slots into place. Bed, room, country, watch, breakfast. I can hear sounds, birds chirping if I'm in Hong Kong traffic. Yeah. Everything already. Tuck, 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 tuck. How quickly does it happen? Microsecond. How does creation happen? Same. The story and the explanation might be long, but how quickly does it happen? Like this. Time is also relative. We think creation's long. No, like this, creation, there. And in creation, the reason there's focus on creation is because in the morning when I wake up, the first thing I create is, what was the first thought? Me. It's a little bit unsettling to think about, but I'm sure you've met people who have had memory loss, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, all these diseases. They've just forgotten bits of their life. So when they wake up in the morning, the sense of me is minus that information. How can it be? How can it just not be there anymore? Actually, it can be very painful for people if it's a loved one who has forgotten, because they can forget us. And then in their concept of me, I don't exist there anymore. Even though I may be a spouse, I may be a child, I may be a... Yeah. But this is to reinforce the concept of me is only what I remember. Concept of me is also what I choose. For example, I know when we moved to Australia, there was this, so much, what's it called? Footy. I've forgotten also, I've been out of Australia, so it's footy. Yeah, so everyone had their team. Like in London, when you go, those names are better. I think I'll use those names. They're better known. Manchester and Arsenal and Liverpool. And, so Australia has the same concept, right? So we moved there, we migrated. And I remember somebody telling my brother, who do you back? And that's Australian English for you. And we didn't even know the teams. And so, of course, whoever family friend we met first, then you just join their team because, it's like, my brother was fairly young at that point also. So, you just go along with it. So let's just say Manchester. I chose. And how did he choose? Randomly. But now, next morning when you wake up, concept of me includes Manchester. It may not be a strong concept of me. Of course, next morning, only after I've chosen it, may not be a strong concept, except, let's say, if it's a teenage boy and he's trying to fit in, and then that's the team, and then that's the one and that's how you get your friends, and that's what you have your conversation about. Next morning, concept of me belonging to Manchester is going to be, yeah. Where was it before? How did it come to be? I chose. Now, choosing Manchester sounds quite random. Let me be a bit more confrontational. Are you introverted, extroverted? Are you short-tempered or patient? Are you a planner or are you messy? Guess who chose? Your concept of you, at some point, you chose. And then the next day, why is it in your concept of you? Memory. I'm just a stressed person. No. We need to add. I choose to be a stressed out person. Sometimes the choice is not always easy to change, but please note, concept of me is my creation. Why would Bhagavatam spend pages and pages and pages on concept of creation? Do we really need to know where all the planets are? And how many different lokas there are and how many parallel universes there are? I mean, it's mind-blowing. It's phenomenal to know that creation is so vast and can exist in so many varied ways. But that's not the point of Bhagavatam going into all of creation theory. The point of Bhagavatam going into all of creation theory is because I create me. Using what? Maya. Now, if I'm using Maya to create me, can it be real? Can it? And what's the point? How shall I prepare to live? How shall I prepare to die? Go back to what's real. go back to whatever it is that supports Maya. Here it's very clear in Bhagavatam. Krishna says, my Maya is endless. Endless. And even the extent to my Maya, I don't even understand. Why? Because it's endless. And Bhagwan's not so focused on Maya. Bhagwan is focused on himself. So not thinking so much about Maya. But for us to know this, for us to know that all of creation keeps coming and going, and that actually it's us that are creating. And we might say, we're not creating Trump being president in America. Maybe you didn't create that. But you created you and your opinions of Trump. And you create the conversations you have about it and add to the or not add to the. And maybe we can't see we have created all of the universe, which is what is being said here. At least we can see that we create ourselves. And there's so many beautiful details given in this chapter, but this is the essence that of Maya, time, and creation is the essence of this chapter. And then it goes back into when the first, there's no even first. That's also one of the fascinating things about when it describes creation and it describes time. It's hard to articulate. Let me explain it. Because there's many universes, one universe can be dissolving while another universe is starting. And so for this universe, it's beginning. But in this universe, it's ending. And so sometimes people from this universe, which is ending, come into this one, which is just starting, because they don't need to die just yet. And so it's incredibly confusing when you read it, because who's coming from where and which time is it? And it's supposed to be the beginning of the universe, but there's so many people already here. And so it really shakes our concept of creation and it shakes our concept of time. And the idea is that it's so vast. Creation is so vast and Bhagwan's glories are so vast and the capacity to create is so vast. And we so often get stuck in one small desire. And it doesn't matter if we think the desire is not small. When you see that there's universes and there's universes and there's universes, whatever the desire is small. So we're going to go into the story of the next canto. And then I might refer back to things in Canto 2 because they're more concepts in Canto 2 as the Bhagavatam progresses. And it all starts with Brahmaji. So in one of the creations, the creation takes the form of a lotus. And in that lotus, the first person to get created is Brahmaji. Now, most of us are familiar with this story. And so we think that's how creation happens. No, no, no. It's only once that creation that way. So it takes the form of a lotus and Brahmaji is sitting in the lotus and Brahmaji looks out and thinks, there doesn't seem to be anyone else here. Where did I come from? And Brahmaji had the good sense to meditate to find the source. And so as he closed his eyes to focus his mind, he hears the word tapa. Tapa means, anyone already knows? Austerity. Yes, it can mean heat, it can mean austerity. Also, what I love about the word is pata. So ta in Sanskrit is one letter. Pa in Sanskrit is one letter. In English, they 4 letters. But in Sanskrit, ta is one letter, pa is one letter. And if you swap it, it's pata, which means twofold. So tapa is flip that. Tapa means lift your thinking, lift your abilities, lift your goal. So the first word that Brahmaji uses now that he exists in this creation is tapa, which is basically the first word being said to all of us. Rise above it. What? This creation that we find ourselves in. So he starts meditating, and he, being Brahmaji, comes to see Bhagwan. And then he says, why did you create me? And Bhagwan says, create. Almost like when you give a kid toys to play with, go play. So Brahmaji creates the Sanat Kumars. The Sanat Kumars are such beautiful souls. They don't grow older the age of like 9, 10, because after that, kids become very bratty. So to stay innocent and pure, they stay small. They don't even want to go through the horribleness of teenage. They want to stay sweet, they want to stay pure, they want to stay noble, they want to stay idealistic. And so they are created, and then Brahmaji gives them instruction, go progenate. They say no. But I created you to progenate. No, 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 we don't want to get more and more sucked into the samsara. We're not going to progenate, we're going to sit here and meditate on Bhagwan. So then Brahmaji got angry. So first he creates Sanat Kumars, his children, and then the children didn't listen to him, and then what got created? Anger. And when he got angry, from his, the gold of his eyebrow came Rudra. And Rudra started crying. And Brahmaji said, why are you crying? He said, because you haven't given me a name yet. So he gives the name Rudra. He says, okay, well, those 4 sons didn't want to create, so he told this son, go create. Rudra was very happy to create. He created very quickly, but what he created was horrendous. So Brahmaji had to say, stop, stop, stop. And then had to invoke Bhagwan's grace to clean. But now Rudra was already created, and he already created. So now asuras exist. And the Sanat Kumars are there. They already exist. So nobility and virtue already exist. So there was nothing, then Brahmaji, and then everything Brahmaji thought of, he had an emotion, that emotion got created. And then he thought, I have to create humans. And thinking how to create humans, his body splits into 2. And from one half comes Manu, man, and from one half comes Shatarpa, woman. Now this in Yoga Shastra is elaborated very extensively. But our left half of the body is considered from our mother and is generally softer. The right half of our body is considered to be from our father and is generally harder. Now, it's not hard and fast because we are a mix of both mother and father, and so everything is also already all mixed up. But interestingly, there will be a slight difference between your left side and your right side. One eye will be slightly bigger, one foot will be slightly bigger, and it's sometimes so slight you don't notice it. But I know this one boy, just his luck, his foot is so much bigger that he has to buy 2 pairs of shoes every time he has to shop. because it's so much significantly bigger that you can't, both feet don't fit into the same size. Very expensive kid. Fortunately, the parents can afford him. But one half of our body is slightly, not only in terms of looks, but also in terms of strength. Anyone who is a gym instructor or a yoga teacher will tell you, one half of our body will be slightly stronger. And then that, in Chinese, it's that yin and yang. And basically, it's the mix of the feminine and the masculine. And every single one of us is a mix of feminine and masculine. And then we manifest predominantly one. So Manu and Shatarupa are created. And then they very obedient children. They look at Brahmaji and says, what do you want us to do? And he said, go populate the earth. And so they said, yes. And then they look and they asked, where's the earth? Now, if this is the beginning of creation and Manu and Shatarupa are the first people, then how can they not be earth? Because there were many creations before this creation. And that's why I introduced that concept already. So there is a asura by the name of Hiranyaksha, which means his eyes were always on gold. Where does gold come from? Earth. So he stole the whole earth and he hid it under water to keep all the gold for himself. And nobody else can have it because it's hidden underwater and nobody else can live underwater. And so now Brahmaji thinks he's creating and the earth should have already been there, but it's not there because Hiranyaksha has stolen the earth. So then Brahmaji thinks, oh, good point. How will they go populate the earth if the earth's not there? And just as how to get the earth back up, from his neck comes a tiny little, and in a few seconds, it's so big, dives into the water, plunges deep in, takes the earth, holds it on its snout, yeah, carries it back up to the earth. In the meantime, we have to pause here, and Hiranyaksha, this demon, loved fighting. He's a Rakshasa, Asuras, he loved fighting, loved violence. And so he kept, challenging people, fight with me. Most people didn't do fight with him. But he would, yeah. You know, that really annoying ones who don't just leave you when you want to be left alone. Asuras. He would do all sorts of natak and be so sarcastic. And so he was telling Varun Devata, you know, you should fight with me. And being very sarcastic, bowing down and saying, oh, great Varun Devata, since you are so great, you should fight. And Varun Devata equally sarcastically says, but I am so old, you are deserving of a better partner. Who should I fight? You should fight Narayana, who is taking the earth back up to the ocean. Varun Devata praises Narayana, who is, you know, the strongest of the strongest and the most courageous and the most valiant. Now, he really didn't like anyone else being praised. Plus, he's being told that Vara Avatar is, Narayan Bhagwan as Vara Avatar is pulling the earth back up. And the earth's his because he wants all the gold. So he immediately goes and he challenges. But Bhagwan's busy saving the earth, so Bhagwan ignores. So he actually attacks, Bhagwan ignores, until the earth is safely placed back on the top. Then Bhagwan engages in a fight. And it lasts one full day of Brahmaji, which is something like 200 years, 300 years here on earth. And it was a very long fight. fight. But Bhagavan didn't have to indulge in such a long fight. Why did he? We forget how compassionate he is. Hiranyaksha wanted to fight. Be very careful what you wish. Be very, very careful what you wish for. Bhagwan grants. He wanted to fight, they fought for so long. Until, of course, Bhagwan destroys him. Now Manu and Shatarupa have an earth to populate, which was the whole purpose of lifting up this earth. But it was more than that. All the stories in the Bhagavatam is far more than that. This particular avatar is to remind us that it is Bhagwan alone that is supporting the earth. Because Vara avatar lifts it up and places it there. How is the land not sinking? I guess it is sinking in some places. No, the land's not sinking. Water is rising. Like the Maldives, right? But even that's our doing. That's not, by nature, it wouldn't happen, I don't think, if the glaciers didn't melt and we didn't reclaim land. I don't know, because we've already done that. So now, but actually, how does the earth just not sink? Because actually land is heavier, right? But no, everything stays as it should. Even when we mess with things, it's surprising that the consequences aren't worse. Things still are adhering to their nature. The entire earth is being supported by, it's Bhagwan who placed it there. And so it's Bhagwan that continues to support it. And so continues to support us that are living on earth. But also, the story is to remind us that in creation, one of the ways in which creation happens, that the 5 elements are created, and then the 5 elements create everything else, including us. First element is space. And in us, space is represented by our ears, because sound travels in space, and then we can hear. Second element is air, correct. Air represents speech. Are y'all just guessing or y'all know? Space represented sound, air represents movement, and gives us the sense of touch, right? Even in quantum physics, the pressure that we feel when we touch is, all of it is very intricately explained, but the sensation is from, it's actually pressure, the sensation of touch. After air comes fire, and fire is the first one we can see. And so fire gives us sight. It's bright, it's light. And it has a form. We can see it because it has a form. Air doesn't have a form, space doesn't have a form. Okay? Then comes water. And water is taste. When there's no water, we can't taste. And even when we eat, when the fruit is juicy, it's more tasty. So water gives us the principle of taste. And then the last is earth. And so there's only one left. So you know which one is the sense of smell. Yeah. Can't smell water, and you think you can smell fire, but what you're smelling is what's being burnt. You can't smell air, you can't smell. The only one you can smell, we can smell, is earth. And we can actually smell earth. When it rains, we love that smell of earth. And so the sense of smell comes from earth, and that is why Varaha avatar came from Brahmaji's nose. Because the earth is linked with the sense of smell, and so he's protecting that. He's protecting earth, which then becomes our smell. But also, what form will Bhagwan take when he comes into your life? The form that is needed. Already we have seen Parikshit was cursed with words, and so Bhagwan has come to him as words. The earth was sunk, and Bhagwan takes the form of a boar. Boars or pigs are probably the creatures that love the earth the most. I mean, buffaloes and elephants roll in mud, but not like the pig. And even their eating of every little bit of dirt is their love for this earth. To save the earth, that love for the earth is shown in this form, but also to show us it's our thinking that he should take this form, he should be like this, he should be like that. How will Bhagwan come to us? We don't know. What the need is, whatever the need is, to fulfill that need, he comes. I mean, of course, we are ignorant, and so to fulfill that need, he comes as knowledge. Of course, we are lonely and suffering, and so he comes as love and compassion. But so many other small ways in our life. To fulfill whatever void or whatever need is there, he takes that form. And how long is this avatar? Well, he had to fight. But otherwise, the task of lifting the earth and putting it back up hardly took few minutes, because he's so strong and very capable. And so unless it's also this, his avatars are never just so one thing. It can be quite small though. No, nothing small enough for him to lifting the earth is a big thing. But fulfilling the need for this asura to fight, such a small thing. Why would he fulfill this asura's desire? Well, that's another story. And then there'll be another story. 3 stories linked in all together. I'm going to do this one really fast because it's a Balvihar story. Most of you already know it. And I'm going to focus on not so much the story, but the meaning of it. Lord Vishnu lives in Vaikuntha. What is Vaikuntha? The name Vaikuntha, the Sanskrit of it, means where Maya becomes blunt. So Maya is sharp, efficient. But where Maya becomes blunt, or where Maya becomes useless, is Vaikuntha's. Then you can see only Bhagwan. Right? But Vaikuntha isn't moksha. Repeat. Vaikuntha isn't moksha. Vaikuntha is heaven. In this hierarchy of it is said to be his heart. Because this is Bhagavad Puran and Sri Krishna, so Vaikuntha is Bhagwan's heart, which is so nice. But if it was Devi Puran, then it would be, Devi would be the heart. But this is Bhagavatam. So Krishna's, Vaikuntha is Bhagwan's heart. But it's still Swarg. What do I mean? It's not all of Bhagwan. It's a bit of Bhagwan. What's moksha? All of Bhagwan. Remember yesterday? How do we know it's Bhagwan? When he can see everything and everyone in himself, by himself. So if we have only a bit of Bhagwan, that's Swarg. It's not moksha. Why am I saying this? Because I'm a Vedanta. But in Bhagavatam, this differentiation is not made. In Bhagavatam, Swarg is considered highest. And attaining Swarg and being with Bhagwan is described as moksha. In Advaita Vedanta, that is not moksha. Because why? Because in this story, you're going to hear why this is not moksha. In Vaikuntha, there are two guards protecting Vaikuntha's entrance so that when people want to come into Vaikuntha, they have to pass them to go see Bhagwan. Actually, Vaikuntha doesn't really need guards, but devotees want to be useful, and so we pretend to make them useful. And so you give them this job. Here, you stand here and guard Vaikuntha. And so Bhagwan is sitting inside, and these guards are there. And in Vaikuntha, Maya becomes blunt. But in Jay and Vijay, pride came. People have to get our permission to see Bhagwan. And then one day, Lakshmi ji went out to run some errands, and when she was coming back, they stopped her. They stopped Lakshmi ji from going into Vaikuntha. Now, if pride comes in your heart, can you be in heaven? Cannot, right? You cannot be in heaven if pride has come in your heart, because the very concept of heaven is there's no pride. Pride is help. Know this. Because very quickly after you'll see it instantly. I know people who sometimes it's silly things like, my cakes always rise, they always the best. It comes out of your mouth, and then the cake will fall in front of you only. I'm so efficient. You did you finish the sentence? Only Bhagwan has smiled. And what's Bhagwan's smile? Careful when we say such sentences. It cannot be heaven, because the minute pride comes, the next thing that's going to happen is fall. It's a law. It's not you and I doing it. It's just a law. Like gravity works, pride falls. It will make the person fall. So pride has come into their heart. They stopped Lakshmi ji. Lakshmi ji went in and said, what nonsense is this? Fire them immediately. Bhagwan said, no, I can't fire them by you saying so. People will say I'm a henpecked husband. Y'all think I'm exaggerating, but that's actually written in the Bhagavatam. When I read it, I was like, what nonsense? You should listen to Lakshmi ji. This is a valid reason. She's not being overly demanding. But actually, the reason he doesn't listen to her is in Grahastha Dharma, if Bhagwan listens to his wife, in Grahastha Dharma, the same moral will be followed, and we are far too attached. We don't have that same clarity, whether it be wife or child. And so Bhagwan's answer is, if they disrespect a saint, then I can fire them. So the idea is, when our near and dear ones tell us to do something, of course, they may have very valid points, but we have to see it objectively using the knowledge of scriptures. Our decision shouldn't be based on, I like you, and so I'm doing it. Our decision should be based on, this is the guidance given to us by people who are thinking very clearly. Yeah. And so even though it's humorously said, no, no, they'll think, I'm only listening to my wife. Actually, it is said, in Bhagavatam. So then Lakshmiji is now sitting there waiting. When is one Santa going to come? Because these people, it doesn't take long, because if Lakshmiji wants it, then of course it's going to happen. And the Sanat Kumars come. And the Sanat Kumars want to go in, and then Jay and Vijay say, stop. You can't go in. Bhagwan is resting. But Bhagwan is perpetually resting. In Vaikunt, that's what he's doing. He's lying on Sheshnag, which apparently is a very soft bed. That's also specified in the Bhagavatam, just so that you know, in case you're wondering, like, why is he sleeping on Sheshnag? And then the Sanat Kumars get angry. Can this be heaven? Can anger exist in heaven? Definition of hell is anger. So first there's pride, then there's anger, and then they get cursed. You have to be born on earth, but they shout because they are angry, and then the shouting brings Bhagwan to the forefront. This is why it's not moksha. They were living in Vaikunt. Who? Jay and Vijay. And then they get cursed. They have to be born on earth, not only born on earth, as asuras. From Vaikunt, you can fall to be an asura. Not once. 3 times they have to be asuras. So reaching Vaikunt's the highest? But Vaikunt's only the heart. If you never want to come back, heaven cannot be your goal. Because even from heaven, pride can come, anger can come, and we can fall. And so those techniques given to us in Canto 2, absorb your mind in that which never changes. If I don't want to keep coming back, absorb our mind in that which never changes. We might meditate on the form of Krishna, but no, Krishna is much more than that form. Accept all of it. All of what? His feet are hell. Accept whatever hell comes. Accept whatever heaven comes. Accept all of it because it's him. And when I get him and him alone and nothing else, not heaven, not hell, all change disappears because he is changeless. Why do we want that? Sorrow comes from change. I was young, gone, sorrow. I have money, gone, sorrow. Whatever, something I have, gone, sorrow. So Jay and Vijay get cursed. And what the cursed is exactly and how it plays out is a large part of the Bhagavatam. It goes into 3 different cantos, not continuous. It breaks with questions here and there. Because remember, the teacher doesn't keep talking until the student asks a question. But Parikshit is a very good student, wanting to understand completely, and so he keeps asking questions. And so we will see more of that tonight. We will pause here and contemplate on the glories of Krishna. Let's close our eyes. Let's sit up nice and straight. Okay. Take a deep breath in. Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama. Shri Krishna So even though we're singing, we're still going to follow taking a deep breath in and letting the line finish as we chant. And then as I sing, you'll still take deep breath in, breathe out, and then repeat once I've finished. So you're still doing the practice with your breath. Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama. Shri Krishna Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama. 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 Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina, Sarve Santu Niramaya, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschit Dukha Bhag Bhavet, Asama Satkamaya, Tamaso Ma Gamaya, Mrityurma Mritam Gamaya. Om Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om.